Hello, BookTube. I'm going to give it one more try here, doing a Friday Reads for you. The first time, my basset hound went to the bathroom, and the second time, an emergency alert came through my phone, warning me of flash floods as a possible threat from the weather tonight, and telling me very helpfully to avoid flash flood areas. It's 50 degrees, black as night, and pouring rain here in Boston, and it is forecast to be 50 degrees, black as night, and pouring rain from now until the 1st of June. So if I'm not in a flash flood area now, I certainly will be in a week. But even so, third time's a charm, so we're going to try and get through a Friday Reads. I'll keep it abbreviated because I'm certain something is going to go wrong. The first thing I want to show you that I'll be reading this weekend is a New English language translation of the Italian stories of Stendhal, who's one of my favorite relatively modern authors. And these are highly atmospheric, picaresque stories that he wrote in the 1830s, thereabouts. And according to the publicity material, this contains some that have never been translated in English before. So that's fantastic, and I'm all for it. He's always an author that I'll stop to read. It's just, I'm going to make a mental note while I'm reading it not to go on and reread anything else by him. Just stick to this. And then the next one is hipster fiction, hip fic. This is Black Mad Wheel. This is our author. Caption says he lives in, what is it, Michigan? Yeah, but I don't believe it for a minute. He lives in Dumbo. But anyway, I wanted to read you a description of it because it intrigued me. The Danes, a band once known as the Darlings of Detroit. I think it should probably be mentioned our author is the lead singer and songwriter for a rock band. Are washed up and desperate for inspiration, eager to have again a #1 hit. Then an agent from the U.S. Army approaches them with an unexpected proposal. Will they travel to an African desert and track down the source of a mysterious and malevolent sound? Under the guidance of their frontman, Philip Tonka, the Danes embark on a harrowing journey through the scorching desert, a trip that takes Philip into the heart of an ominous and twisted conspiracy. Meanwhile, in a nondescript Midwestern hospital, a nurse named Ellen tends to a patient recovering from a near-fatal accident. The circumstances around his injuries are mysterious, and yet his body heals at a remarkable rate. Ellen will do the impossible for this enigmatic patient, who reveals more about his accident with each passing day. Part Heart of Darkness, part Lost, Josh Malerman's masterful, chilling new novel plunges us into the depths of psychological horror where you can't always believe everything you hear. It sounds like it will disappoint me, but I'm gonna give it a try this weekend. But the bulk of what I will be reading this weekend, probably most of the weekend, is themed. I will be reading this book, which we saw on the channel just the other day, 1968 by Mark Bowden, which concentrates on the lovely city, but is about, I would imagine, it's about the Tet Offensive. It's about this big watershed military event of the Vietnam War. And because I will be reading this, I'll be reading it exhaustively, closely, pencil in hand, annotating as I go along. And because I'll be giving it that kind of attention, I'm going to want to do some background reading. So I pulled two books off the shelf. The first, of course, is Stanley Carnot's History of Vietnam, which I really like, even though it's a little bit breathless, it's a little bit melodramatic, and also you might think it would be fatal for a history. I don't consider it fatal, but it does bother me. It can be a little bit sloppy with the facts, which in pursuit of effect, which always bugs me. I mean, he has scenes here. If I remember correctly, I mean, it's been 5 years since I read it, 10 years maybe since I read the whole thing, and I don't plan on reading the whole thing this weekend. Just the chunk. There's about a 50-page chunk of what I need, but I'll probably end up reading quite a bit of it anyway, just to get the old scent back, because I'm going back to Vietnam this weekend. Oh my God! But there are scenes, I remember many of them in the course of reading the book, where the description would be a fierce firefight when the reality wasn't that, and this is not Herodotus and the Persian Wars here. This is an event that was exhaustively documented for every minute of its existence, and that had thousands of eyewitnesses survive and write things. So, you know, there's no excuse, is what I'm saying, for that sort of melodramatizing. But I'm going to read a chunk of it anyway. Probably, well, certainly the huge chunk about the Tet Offensive, but probably a lot more than that as well. And I'm going to read a history, an older history, and I'm going to read a modern history, and I got to read something more contemporaneous than that, and there's nothing better than the great Eye of Stone. This is a collection of his columns from his own publication that covers the years involved, and there are 1,000 pages, there are 1,000 words each, but they just bristle with heat and anger and intelligence. These who is this? Little Brown years and years ago did a whole shelf of collections of I.F. Stone, and they are indispensable, just indispensable for understanding the on-the-ground reality of the country during the years in which he was writing. I don't know that we have a lot of writers like him now, and I knew him briefly towards the end of his life, and it was our correspondence was a little testy because I wasn't a big fan of his book on the death of Socrates, but as a Cato observing the events of his own day, he's unmatched. And so I want to be reading these, and again, I'm telling myself that I will just read the pertinent essays, but I know I won't. I know I'll end up reading lots of them. So that's my an abbreviated am reading. And there's a big chunk of it is the Vietnam War. Big chunk of it. I don't think I'll read all of these bottom two. I will study this. That will suck down a long time. And then Hipfic, a rock band trying to save the world, and some new translations into English of Stendhal, which I'm always up for, even though he's another example of an author that I think is. I mean, as I get older, as I approach 30, I look at authors like Stendhal and I think, why bother to read this author in an English language translation? Why bother to do that? As I get older, I'm losing patience and fascination with new attempts to translate things, and that's bad because I'm not just reading these things for pleasure. I'm also accountable for them. So, and new translations of anything into English are very much worth my time, and I must continue to remember that. But that's it for now. In between emergencies of both domestic and national. And I'm going to wrap this up, but as usual with the Friday Reads, I'm wondering to know what you're all reading this weekend. I'm hoping that wherever you are, you have the warmth of spring, and also, what was it called again? I Googled it right before the video. Oh yeah, sunlight. I see videos of it, and it looks amazing. I vaguely remember it, but Boston will not be seeing it anytime soon, so get used to these ceiling lights. But in the meantime, please let me know what you're reading, and I'll see you soon, book 2. Thank you.